Hello, and welcome to another episode of Broadcast Gaming Talk. This is going to be the third and final video in the small series that I have been doing, which is the Forgotten Transformers games. One of my favorite Transformers cartoons has always been this series that started in 2010 and ran for 3 seasons, and that is Transformers Prime. Luckily, it was popular enough that it got its own video game, which is what this episode is going to be about. Here is everything that you may want to know about Transformers Prime, the game. Now before I start, when I get to where I show gameplay, the gameplay is of the Nintendo DS version, because I have a Nintendo DS emulator and am recording, was recording a playthrough of this. I completed that recording of said playthrough. But I had to use the emulator because, Nintendo's 3DS capture cards are rare and expensive, and obviously I do own a 3DS. Anyway, I have been looking for a physical copy of the game, the 3DS version, but, it's not been going well. I haven't found it yet. But I would like it because I want to have the proper experience playing the game. Anyways, on to the video. Unlike previous videos in which I talk about a specific version of a game, like the Nintendo DS port of Transformers War for Cybertron, I'm going to be talking about all versions of Transformers Prime, the game. Transformers Prime, the game, released in North America on October 30th, 2012. The Wii U version released in North America on November 18th, 2012. The Wii and Wii U and 3DS versions were developed by Now Productions, and the regular DS version of the game was developed by Altron. As just stated, the game was released on the Nintendo Wii, Nintendo Wii U, Nintendo 3DS, and Nintendo DS. The game itself plays like the typical third-person action game and has a mix of shooting and melee combat. The game has a story mode that kind of follows the events of Season 1 of Transformers Prime through 13 levels. There is also a multiplayer modes that include Brawl, Energon Match, and Emblem Battle. There are 11 playable characters that include Optimus Prime, RC, Bulkhead, Bumblebee, Ratchet, Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, Arachnid, Knockout, and Dreadwing. Now, in the story mode, you can only play as the Autobots, but you can play both factions in the multiplayer. So what about the story? To be honest, it's pretty basic stuff. Decepticons have Dark Energon and want to do bad stuff with it, and the Autobots needs to stop them. There's not much to it. I know I would usually give a short version of the story, but I don't think it's necessary to. If you have watched at least the first season of Transformers Prime, then you know what to expect from the story of this game. And I will say one thing is that there's a lot of boss fights, which is fine, but it's a lot of your typical stuff, who is the quote-unquote nemesis of this character. Arachnid has to fight RC, although they missed out on doing Bulkhead and Breakdown, but they have Bulkhead fighting Starscream. Obviously Prime fights Megatron, Ratchet fights Knockout, which is perfect. I don't know why they didn't do Breakdown, but whatever. Anyway, despite playing this game on an emulator, I had a lot of fun with the game. I was not expecting to have this much fun with the game, or the game actually be pretty good. A lot of review places gave it a 7 out of 10, and I can see it. It's a good game, but the story is kind of just basic. When you think about it, this is the only kind of proper Transformers game on Nintendo platforms, since they couldn't get a proper version of War for Cybertron on the Wii. Plus all the god-awful movie video games that are always the worst versions of already crappy games, too. So, yeah, I guess I would recommend this game. It actually is pretty fun, if you can find a copy, anyway. Obviously the better versions are going to be the Wii and the Wii U, but, I'm sure the 3DS version is good too. That's all I have to say, so if you want to add to the conversation, leave a comment below. As always, thanks for listening, and goodbye.